In the last video lecture, we had discussed corporate social responsibilities and the four models of corporate social responsibilities, and in which we said how trusteeship, status state, free model state, and a state wherein stakeholders theory. We discussed all these models. So we move further today. In the first slide, I want to discuss with you what is called the Carroll's pyramid of CSR. Archie Carroll is the professor who is credited with coming up with this concept of CSR pyramid. And Archie Carroll is a professor in University of Georgia, and he has been teaching there for last 40 years. And he developed this CSR pyramid based upon various studies done by other sociologists and business and business gurus who have been studying the corporate world. And he developed this CSR model. This basically, eh, in this, the management of CSR, or the pyramid of CSR, is divided into four parts. And it has been 30 years since Archie Carroll came up with this pyramid of CSR, and it is today considered to be the basic explanation of CSR. So, towards the moral management of organizational stakeholders. So, at the bottommost layer of the pyramid is what we called every business has got economic responsibilities. After economic responsibilities, there are legal responsibilities. After legal responsibilities, there are ethical responsibilities. And after ethical responsibilities, there are philanthropic responsibilities. Philanthropy. So I will give you some examples of philanthropy. Also, I'll talk to you about, people talk about Bill and Melinda Gates. I'll talk about Azim Premji, the man I admire, the person who started Wipro software business, Azim Premji, and now his son Rishad Premji is the chairman of Wipro. So at the bottom is economic responsibility. See, it is the responsibility of the business to be profitable. Because if the business is not profitable, how will it help the society, right? It is like this. How will you help a poor if you are yourself a poor? You can help, of course, morally, you can support him, give him your physical support, but you cannot lend any economic support to him because you are yourself poor. So, first and foremost, it is the responsibility of the management of the business to ensure that the business is economically stable, it is meeting the main objective of business, which is to meet the customers' expectations, and in the process to achieve a value for the business and give value to the customer, right? So it has to be a sustainable business, it has to be a profitable business. Once the business is profitable, the business, after that comes legal responsibilities. Legal responsibilities. Obey the law. If the law says giving bribe and taking bribe is an offense and you are a private sector organization, you are equally culpable under the law to be booked under the law if you are found giving bribes. Right? What is law? Law is basically, as Archie Carroll described, law is the society's codification of right or wrong. And you have to play by the rules. There is no if and but. Anything which is illegal, is unethical, is something not to be very proud of. Not, it doesn't, to boast that you are able to evade so much of tax, not save, evade so much of income tax, or you are able to evade so much of GST. It's not something to be proud of. So at the bottom of the pyramid is economic responsibility, and after that is legal responsibility. After that comes ethical responsibility. Ethical responsibility. You have to be ethical. You have an obligation to do what is right. You have to be just and fair, and you have to avoid harm to the society. You have to be good to your employees. It's your responsibility. Not pay them just minimum wages, but what your business can bear. You have to view your employees as your partners in progress, your vendors. You have a stake in the development and progress of your vendors. your customers. You have it, it's in your interest and it's your duty, sacred duty to think about your customers all the time. Your bankers, your creditors, your shareholders. You have to be ethical to them, right? It may not be legal responsibility to pay dividend, for example, but the shareholders expect dividend from you. So you must have a dividend policy. You must have a fair policy of remuneration. There is no legal embargo even if you pay high, very high salary to a CEO, but you have to find a balance between the employee at the bottom and employee at the top. Equity, diversity, inclusiveness, equity. You must be seen to be distributing fair rewards. Diversity. You have to include among your employees, among your suppliers, all sections of people. Inclusiveness, especially the poorer section, marginalized section. It is your ethical responsibility to bring that section up, isn't it? So you have to perform in a way you expect others to perform. It's the same thing that society expects you to perform. So this is third pyramid. Economic responsibility, legal responsibility, ethical responsibility. Then comes philanthropic responsibility. People talk about Bill and Melinda Gates. I salute them. But I also bow my head to Ajim Premji. Do you know how much is the donation in charitable cause he made, Ajim Premji? 1 crore? 2 crore? No, sir, 50 crores. Think more. 100 crores. Okay, sir, 500 crores. Think more. 600 crores. 700 crores. Sir, maybe 1000 crore. Sir, maybe 1500 crore. 2000 crore. Sir, 5000 crore. Let's stop here. 7,902 crore rupees in philanthropic activities. 7,904 crore rupees for the cause. During the time of pandemic, he made a donation of 22 crore every single day. This is philanthropy. Be a good corporate citizen. Go beyond ethics. Philanthropic responsibility. This is the final pyramid, final layer on the pyramid of Archie Carroll. Archie Carroll, professor at Georgia, he is the one who gave this pyramid. And I hope you have understood the pyramid. Once again, economic responsibility, legal responsibility, ethical responsibility, and philanthropic responsibility. Let me now crave for your indulgence and bring to the table the corporate social responsibility as it is practiced in India. We have done the Carroll's pyramid, Archie Carroll's, in which economic responsibility, the legal responsibility, ethical responsibility, philanthropic responsibility. I gave you the example of Ajim Premji. Very good work done in philanthropy by all big houses, Birla, Tatas, Ambani. Shiv Nadar Foundation has done remarkable work, remarkable work. I personally think Shiv Nadar has given away more than 5,000 crores of rupees in the last 2 years, or maybe this figure could be double. Shiv Nadar Foundation has in philanthropic causes. But in India, customer service responsibility CSR has been made mandatory by way of inserting a clause of section 135 in what is known as the New Companies Act 2013. New Companies Act 2013 India, it was passed by, it's an act of parliament, and the rules were notified in February 2014 and they came into force from 1st April 2014. So what is first of all, what is Companies Act? What does it mean? In short, Companies Act is a very comprehensive document that regulates the corporate sector in India. How will the companies be formed? What is the role and responsibility of Ministry of Corporate Affairs in this, or Registrar of Companies, ROC? So it regulates incorporation of the company, the role of directors, what are the responsibilities of directors, legal responsibilities, fiduciary responsibilities of directors, what is the reporting structure of the companies. Everything is contained in Companies Act. How will be company dissolved? How can directors resign? How can the new director come in? So every aspect of business, private sector business, is regulated by Companies Act 2013, right? It does not regulate the government departments, but the companies, the commercial companies in India. Okay, and it contains a section 135 now, which mandates CSR regulation for Indian companies. This in effect makes CSR compulsory for some companies. India is the only country in the world where CSR is not voluntary, but it is mandated under the law. There are penalties. So there are classification of companies, which company is supposed to do what, and there are penalties under the law. So to whom does this CSR Act apply? It applies to this clause, section 135 is applicable to the companies which have a net worth of 500 crores, net worth of 500 crores, or annual turnover of 1000 crore or more. So net worth 500 crore, annual turnover 1000 crore or more, or it's not and it's or annual net profit of rupees 5 crore or more. So I am showing you a funnel, and you can see this, that what it means. In the funnel, I have the CSR funnel. I have set CSR spend of 2% of average net profit for annual turnover of 1000 crore, net worth more than 500 crore, or annual net profit more than 5 crore. So what do you mean by net worth? You can ask, what is meant by net worth? Net worth, what is net worth? See, net worth basically is the sum total of one's tangible assets. Tangible means those that can be physically held or converted to cash, minus one's total debts, borrowing. So, sum total of one's tangible assets minus one's total debts. The formula to determine your tangible net worth is total assets minus total liabilities minus intangible assets is equal to tangible net worth. What is intangible asset? Intangible asset, for example, if you hold a IP of something, if you have intellectual property rights, and it is also valued at something, it is intangible asset. So calculating your tangible net worth, it involves totaling all your assets, maybe cash, investments, and property, and totaling all your secured and unsecured debt, and then subtracting this secured and unsecured debt from the former, it will bring you net worth. Okay, so it's very clear. And how is net profit calculated? Net profit before tax, not including profits arising from all the branches, is the net profit. If you are operating outside the country, then if you have a company outside of India, then you will not include those branches or companies. This 2% CSR spending needs to be computed as 2% of average net profit made by the company during every block of 3 years. So for the purpose of first reporting, which was in 2014, the net profit should be calculated on the average of net profit of the preceding 3 financial years ending on or before 31st March 2014. Okay, so this is net profit. To explain more, you have a company, you have what is your turnover? Turnover means your turnover minus the tax which you pay is the turnover. Okay, so because tax you collect and then tax you collect from the customer or the consumer and you pay it back to the uh, government. So companies will have to draw up a policy and action plan to ensure that they spend required 2% amount on activities which are included. There is a schedule called schedule, I think it is schedule 7 or schedule 8. CSR expenditure should exclude expenditure on the activities which are undertaken in pursuance of normal course of business of a company. You cannot say that for you cannot club other activities of the company which you undertake in the and you cannot put it under the CSR. See, foreign companies also have to contribute to CSR on the profits of their businesses in India. Okay, and companies belonging to same group they can set up a trust or a not-for-profit company to undertake CSR. Companies should also join hands with other companies. They can also join hands with other companies to undertake joint CSR project. This would allow groups and companies operating in areas to come together and undertake project of a large scale. For example, if there is a Indian Oil Corporation refinery in Mathura, and if there any other large company near that, they can join hands together for any CSR activity for the population or the people or the communities in Mathura. So you have to understand. I have explained to you the funnel. What is turnover? 500 crores. I have explained to you net worth. Net worth should be 1000 crore. I have explained to you what is net worth. Net profit. Once again, to explain to you more, if you have some sales, from your sales you minus the taxes which you have paid. From that you minus the cost of goods sold, and from that you subtract the interest that you have paid on your business operations, and tax you have already debited the tax which you have paid. You take away depreciation, okay, any amortization of expenses which you have taken. What is amortization? Suppose you have set up a business and you have done huge publicity, and that you have amortized over next 5 years. That is amortization. Depreciation, if you have purchased assets and you have by way of allowable depreciation, the methods of which are allowed, you have spread the cost of that asset over several years. You have deducted the manpower cost, you have deducted interest, you paid everything. Then you arrive at uh, a gross profit. After gross profit, you pay corporate tax, income tax. Then you arrive at the net profit. So I have explained to you all the four parameters. What comprises 2% CSR expenditure? I have also told you branches outside the India, their profits are not included. I have also told you that the multinational companies, foreign companies operating in India, they have to pay, they have to spend this 2% of their net profits in the branches or in their operations in India. I have also told you that companies can join hands together and form a not for profit company, or they can set up a trust and they can but one catch in this thing is that, of course, if you also give money to some of the government owned trust like some relief fund or something, you can do that. That also will count under CSR. But normal trust, like you have paid to a temple and you have got that exemption, that thing is contentious. It is no longer there. So the CSR funnel I have explained to you. I have explained to you what is the 2%. I have explained to you how the net profit is calculated, and I hope you have understood what is the CSR funnel that I am talking about. In the next slide, we will talk about the guiding principles. We'll talk about the guiding principles of CSR law in India. So, continuing with the CSR law in India, Let us first take some examples. Let me also explain what is the guiding principle of CSR law in India. And I want to read the chairman of CSR committee constituted by the government to formulate rules governing CSR under section 135 of the Companies New Companies Act 2013. Actually, this 2013 Companies Act, it replaced the Companies Act of 1956. A lot of changes were there. So earlier there was Companies Act 1956, which was replaced by Companies Act 2013. The guiding principles proposed are follows. CSR is the process by which an organization thinks about and evolves its relationship with stakeholders for common good and demonstrates its commitment in this regard by adoption of appropriate business processes and strategies. So first of all, CSR is something through which the act says the principle of CSR is that the corporates must devote themselves, dedicate themselves, affirm themselves to the common good, and they must be committed. Commitment. So whether the commitment can be forced into somebody, especially the commitment for philanthropy and all these things, we have to see. But it says CSR is not charity or mere donations. CSR is a way of conducting business by which corporate entities visibly contribute to the social good. They not only contribute, they are seen to be contributing towards the social good. Socially responsible companies do not limit themselves to using resources to engage in activities that increase only their profits. They use CSR to integrate economic, environmental, and social objectives with the company's operation and growth. So this is I have taken it from the government gazette. This is the guiding principle of CSR law in India. So, but let's take some examples. For example, it says that the CSR is not charity or not mere donations. CSR is a way of conducting business by which corporates and entities visibly contribute to the social good. See, this is very good in paper, and this is in a way something which is trying to make it responsible. They trying to make companies responsible and corporate citizens. Let us see what are the directives given to companies here. So companies who come under this mandatory 2% CSR, 2% of net profit. Which companies? Net worth of 500 crore or sales exceeding 1000 crore, or a net profit of 50 crore. A net profit of 50 crore. So just to a net profit of annual net profit of 5 crore. So that annual turnover 1000 crore, net worth of 500 crore, and annual net profit of 5 crore. So all these companies, how will they do CSR? First of all, the companies have to, and they are mandated. There are three main things. One is they have to create a CSR committee, and it is made up of three or more directors. Mind you, director level committee, one of whom must be an independent director. So what is an independent director? You will ask. See, normally there are in companies there are executive directors who are responsible for day-to-day operation or month-to-month operation. They are responsible for ensuring the target achievement or the business objective of the company. There are independent directors normally who are drawn from public consumer groups, people of reputation, people of repute, people from various, for example, a company which produces something which is used by masses, they may like to draw somebody from one of the citizens or from one of the consumer groups leaders into the CSR committee. So the CSR committee is made up of three or more directors, one of whom must be independent director. Number two, report the details of the CSR initiatives undertaken by the company. They must be published on the company's website. So what have companies done? Report details of all CSR initiatives undertaken by the company in the director's report also, and on the company's website at the end of the year. So this is mandatory. So CSR activity is mandatory. Setting up a committee is mandatory. You cannot escape it. Not only that, you have to publish the report on your website and you have to include it in the board of directors. Not only that, you have to create a corporate social responsibility policies that details which activities you will undertake. And you cannot just take any activity. You have to first decide it, and they should also be published on the website. So I have taken down Indian Oil Corporation, which is a government company. In financial year 1916-17, as per the 2% net profit rule, they should have spent at least 212 crores on the CSR activities. They spent almost 213.99 crore. So prescribed amount, uh, the actual amount they spent is more than the prescribed amount. Financial year 2017-18, the prescribed amount was 327.94 crore and they spent 331.05 crores. Once again, they have exceeded the prescribed amount. Financial year 18-19, prescribed amount was 490.60 crore and they have spent 490 from 60 crore, exactly the same amount. So Indian Oil Corporation has actually met this target of prescribed CSR target. But IOC is a big company in terms of Fortune 500 ranking. It is ranked number 161. It's a company of 33,000 employees, 33,000 workforce, large company. It buys crude oil and it refines crude oil. It stores crude oil. It distributes it, and it also has petrol stations. It has LPG dealers. It has kerosene dealers. It is making aviation fuel. It has a research and development wing. It is selling lubricants. It is selling petrochemicals. It is selling specialty products. Almost all of Indian Army and Indian Railways, majority of that depends upon Indian Oil Corporation for their product supplies. Okay, and it's a premier flagship company. Fortune rank is 161. Fortune rank means companies which are ranked by the Fortune magazine based upon their annual turnover. So it's a high rank. In terms of sales, it is a very, very high rank. How have they spent this money? They have an Indian Oil Foundation. They have spent money in giving sports scholarship. They have spent money in waste to fuel projects. They have spent money in the Ujjwala Yojana. What is Ujjwala Yojana? Ujjwala Yojana was envisaged by the Prime Minister, under which the oil companies gave free cylinder to many below the poverty line families in rural and urban India. It has spent money on skill development institute in Bhubaneswar. It's a CSR activity. They have given a lot of donations. They have given a lot of donations to Kendriya Vidyalayas. They have spent a lot of money developing Institute of Chemical Technology. I think it is in Matunga. They have spent money on Gyanoday schemes, which is again basically a scholarship. They have a Assam Oil School of Nursing in which they have spent. So, uh, for a public sector company like Indian Oil, this CSR rule has been very good, and in fact, they have now channelized their CSR activities in a very focused manner and in a very good manner. I have myself worked with Indian Oil Corporation. It is a great company to work for. It's a great company, and some of the work it does, it's and any good project you take to the any executive director or your management, they always approve it. I remember I was a young management trainee and I had taken up the project of adult literacy program, and within no time my tour to Delhi was approved. I could go anytime. I could work as much as I wanted on this project, and because they believed that it was in a genuine interest of the community, and IOC as a premier company has a responsibility towards the society. So I went to the Ministry of Education (HRD) in Shastri Bhavan. I went to meet the head of adult literacy program, and he gave me a lot of study material and a lot of resource material, and we developed a plan, and we developed a village, and we ensured that all the women of that village who were unlettered and illiterate, they became literate in 1 year time. So IOC does a lot of good work. And so CSR, like in case of internal corporation, because I promised you I will take up this case. So other companies can also spend. There are many areas where companies can spend. There are 10 areas, and I will in the next slide I will enumerate those 10 areas where CSR budget can be spent. So what are the 10 areas where CSR budget can be spent? As per the list which I have seen, I have updated it from a website. The first is eradicating hunger, poverty, and malnutrition. This is one area. So you CSR, you can have projects which are focused on these areas. Second is promoting education. Third is promoting gender equality. Fourth is ensuring environmental sustainability. So uh, if you are donating to Clean Ganga project or something, and if you are doing something for the environment, for example, you are doing something for to reduce the stubble burning, this will fall under the this will qualify as a CSR budget. Protection of national heritage, art, and culture. So if you adopt a particular monument which is which is considered to be very of high national heritage, and you do your spendings there, you have a program, you maintain and upkeep the facilities. This will qualify as under CSR. Measures for the benefit of armed forces veterans, war widows, and their dependents. So if you are doing a program which is for the benefit of these people. Training to promote rural sport. So if you are organizing a rural sport fair, it will qualify as a CSR activity. Contribution to Prime Minister's Relief Fund. And here I will tell you that the day the PM Care Fund was launched, it was said that the contribution made by organizations, companies to this will qualify as a CSR expenditure. There is a lot of hue and cry, and people said that why Chief Minister's Relief Fund will making contribution there, why will it not qualify under CSR budget? It has been clarified that Prime Minister's Relief Fund and Chief Minister's Fund during the COVID pandemic times, any contribution made to CM's Relief Fund or the PM Cares Fund, it will qualify as a CSR budget. Contribution or funds provided by technology incubators like in IITs and ITIs and some other institutes. IITs, not ITIs, because incubators or in a regional engineering college or in academic institutions, that will qualify as a CSR budget. Rural development projects will qualify as CSR projects. So if there is a road, if you are constructing a road which is connecting two villages, it's part of rural development. Slum area development. So in any notified slum, if you carry out any CSR activity there, and that slum has to be a recognized slum area, it will be you can count it as a CSR budget. Anything which is related to disaster management, it will qualify as a CSR budget. Mind you, the expense which you make for the CSR activities, you cannot call them business expenses. So fairly comprehensive list of what is where companies can invest in CSR, and this list is a CSR committee can approach the government or any the Ministry of Corporate Affairs and seek clarification from them if something which they are willing to undertake, will it qualify as a CSR activity or not. So the original debate of why Chief Minister's Relief Fund, whether a contribution made there will be taken as a CSR budget, that is settled. Any contribution made during this pandemic crisis to the PM Cares Fund or Chief Minister's Relief Fund will qualify as a CSR budget. I have prepared this slide for my students from the perspective of examination. So, although I have covered this topic in the previous video lecture also, I think it was video lecture 32. Why should companies invest in CSR? This question has been asked many times. So I've just given some 8 points. First is it's the moral duty of the companies to give back to the society. So a corporation must be a good corporate citizen. So that is number one. Number two point is company should invest in CSR to earn the goodwill of the society, and goodwill is an intangible asset. So this is how you have to answer this question. Goodwill is an asset. It's an intangible asset, and goodwill results in increased valuation. Third point you can mention is that investment in CSR is a good insurance during hard times. When the times are not so good, then a company's reputation, a company's goodwill, it stands them in good stead. I have given an example in some of the lectures of Radia tapes, wherein Neera Radia, that infamous controversy wherein a person allegedly engaged, alleged public relations expert company, and how it was also handling the accounts of Tatas. But the because Tatas have done so much good CSR work on the ground, their cancer hospitals, their institutes, their philanthropy, their scholarship, Tata's goodwill has remained intact. It's a good insurance against hard times. Okay. In 1979, George Fernandez, he was a mercurial trade minister, trade laborer who became industries minister. He tried to industrialize Tisco. He could not do so because workers of Tisco they rallied against the concept of nationalization. Workers of Tisco said they don't want to be nationalized. So I mean, because company has been so good to employees, so good to the people around them. People used to proudly say that what Tatas had done to Tisco and the place where Tisco factories were established, no government could do that. Also, fourth point you can say is the rising expectation from society mandates that you do some CSR. Because society has expectations, and a business which is not doing enough CSR will not be viewed well. Growing activism, fifth point is growing activism by leading activists means that companies must turn to CSR. The Vedanta Sterlite copper plant in Tamil Nadu could have averted a shutdown if company had paid to the growing protest by people on pollution. So people were crying that your plant is polluting us. As a good corporate citizen, had the company arrested that pollution, took some proactive steps, the shutdown of the entire plant could have been averted. Long-term economic benefits of CSR are well known. Research has proved a positive correlation between the magnitude of CSR in terms of money spent in CSR activity and the market valuation on the long term. You look at companies, Indian Oil Corporation, Oil and Natural Gas Corporation, Tata's, Birla's, Hindustan Unilever. They have exemplary track record of CSR activity. Seventh point, of course, is now it has become a legal requirement because of the amendment, because of the new Companies Act of 2013. This is the 7 point. Eighth point which I have given is economic benefit of CSR are there even in mid-term, even in short term. A company with visible and well planned CSR attracts best talent, best vendor, best banks. As per research done by Boston College in May 2009, a good CSR, a company with an excellent image of CSR will get best employees, best creditors, best investors, and complete support from community. So I have given this 7 8 points because a question comes. You may not, if my students are able to remember these points, you would be able to score well. And one of my intent of teaching, of course, one of the objectives is that you do well in the exam. Although it's not the prime objective, it's a secondary objective. Primary objective is so that you become ethical citizens and you help in whichever corporate you join or you establish or you found, let that corporate be a good corporate citizen. That's my intent. But here, to talk to help you score some marks also, I thought I should do this. Thank you. The question which has been asked to me several times in whichever forum I am, whenever I deliver a lecture on the corporate social responsibility scenario in India, and this question has been posted to me by some people who are in who asked me this question on Quora forum and on Facebook is, can corporate social responsibility be imposed? Something which is voluntary, can it be made mandatory? Because I remember when this question of CSR was being discussed in the parliament, and when questions were being asked by the press, somebody asked at that point in time the Minister for Corporate Affairs, I think it was Sachin Pilot, he said that the corporate social responsibility rules are there so that the corporates act voluntarily and responsibly and contribute to the social causes. So therein lies that paradox. India is the only country, or at least in 2013, 2014, India was the only country which made corporate spending on corporate social responsibility not voluntary but mandatory. So certain criterion were laid down. You should have this much net worth, or you should have this much of sales, or you should have this much of net profit in the preceding 3 years, and 2% of that. I will come to that in the lecture in the later part. But what I want to say is, at that point in time, India was one of the highest corporate taxed nations in the world. The corporate income tax was to the extent of 32% or thereabout. Now, of course, after the NDA government, the income tax, the corporate tax has been reduced substantially by 5%. So to that extent I agree, but the very concept of making something which is philanthropy, something which is gifting, something which is charity as mandatory and punishable under the law. Remember, punishable under the law, and so many restrictions have been placed, because there are many points of view. Some people can say that businesses need to give back to the society. My point is, or the point of view of some people is, that the businesses, they pay, if you import something, you pay import duty or customs duty, and after that there is GST. Earlier there used to be excise duties also if you produce something in the factory. Now everything is subsumed in GST. So companies pay taxes. It is right that in the end the companies take it out, or the companies load this factor of GST onto the customers. But the fact is, the companies collect tax and companies pay these taxes. Okay, if the company is providing service, company is paying service tax. Okay, so if there is a restaurant, the restaurant is paying a service tax. It is different service tax on food items, different service tax on non-food or alcoholic items. So corporates already are paying tax, and mind you, after the corporates have declared a profit, corporates pay income tax on that, isn't it? So corporates pay income tax on that. So many people say that it is the job of the government to collect taxes, and all social responsibilities must vest with the government, not with the corporates. Why? Because it is a matter of what is your expertise, what is your core competence. Companies have a core competence of identifying the needs in the market, assessing the need, making a revenue model, manufacturing that product or service, providing it, last mile distribution, and in the process to satisfy a need and also make a profit. It is not the task of the corporates or companies to get completely involved in the task of in the task of nation building or community service. For that there are NGOs, and earlier companies were paying donations to these NGOs and they were getting income tax exemptions. However, from the CSR rules, if a company has to pay 2% of their net profit into CSR, unless they are paying to certain
government societies like relief funds or what have you, income tax exemption is not allowed. The government says income tax exemption is not allowed because then that would mean reduced corporate social responsibility to the extent of 10% or 15%. But I'm talking of a larger question. Companies pay taxes to the governments. It is for the government to utilize that tax and use it for community building. Okay, if you ask me personally, the thought or the philosophy of voluntary charity, philanthropy, community service, it's taken away by mandatory corporate social responsibilities. But then if there is a rule which has been passed and which is an act of parliament, then as good corporate citizens, everybody has to follow the rule. If you don't follow the rule, you are indulging in illegal activity and unethical activity. But the debate will continue. In one or two cases, some people have approached a tribunal or a court and they have been given a relief in income tax if they give some donation to some society. The jury is still out. My personal view, all CSR activities should ideally be voluntary, because eventually CSR is an advantage to the business. Business should understand, and business understands what is good for business and what is not good for business. So, and if the corporate taxes are very high, it doesn't make much sense to put an additional burden which is equal to 2% of the net profit. In defense of government, I should say that successive governments, especially the NDA government under Jaitley, they did reduce the corporate tax or the corporate income tax substantially. So on one hand, government has imposed something, on the other hand, government has given some relief. Also, the government feels that companies must, especially large companies, large corporates, they must have a CSR committee, and the CSR committee, it should become a part of the business model of the companies. CSR committees must recruit some staff, or they must work hand in hand with some of the NGOs or other third parties or organizations so that they can indeed serve their community. So I thought I should give a holistic picture to my students. But remember, India, to my knowledge, it's the only country which has made corporate social responsibility voluntary. Other countries, companies in their balance sheets, they declare their CSR activity. They say which project they are doing, which project they are not doing. In the course of the video, I will show you some of the CSR activities as they have been reported by Indian Oil Corporation. They have done tremendous work. Earlier also, Indian Oil Corporation was doing a terrific job in terms of giving it back to the society. But after the implementation of the new CSR rules, it has done even a better job. So every coin has two sides, and CSR being mandatory, being imposed upon the companies, it also has two sides. It is for you to decide, and it's for companies to either approach the government with a plan or voluntarily embrace it. Thank you.